Greetings to our respectful lecturer, Sir Ahmad Ghazali. So today our group will present about the Sri Lanka economic crisis that happened in 2022. So present our group members. Hopefully everything clear and let's start.
To give a better overview of the Sri Lanka financial crisis is by looking into the historical context of the issues that had unfolded over the past few years, which have ultimately resulted in a crisis phenomenon. The Sri Lanka Civil War, spanning from 1983 to 2009, had a profound impact on the country's economic stability. After the conclusion of the Civil War in 2009, Sri Lanka initiated a period of rehabilitation and development known as a post-war reconstruction. The government prioritized the promotion of tourism and the attraction of the foreign investment. The previous study has identified two crises in Sri Lanka, which is the currency crisis of 2011 and 2012 and the balance of payment crisis, which occurred twice in the 1970s and 1980s and 2015 to 2016. Starting with the currency crisis, Sri Lanka experienced a currency crisis in the early 2010, which was marked by a significant depreciation of the Sri Lankan rupee. The government's permissive monetary policy and excessive borrowing were the primary factors contributing to the depletion of foreign reserve. Another past crisis that Sri Lanka has experienced is a balance of payment issue due to the high level of external debt and significant fiscal deficit which affect the country's foreign reserve. As a result, the IMF offered a standby plan to assist in reserve rebuilding, better budgetary control, and economic stabilization. Another historical context that led to the crisis is the major economic policy, since the Sri Lanka government chose to enact notable tax cuts, lowering value-added tax from 15% to 8% and shaving corporation tax from 28% to 24%. But these steps caused the significant loss of government income, which leads to the budget deficit. Moving on to the Sri Lanka's key economic indicator, starting with the GDP growth rate. Sri Lanka GDP has faced a strong growth in early 2010, peaking about 8% in 2012. However, recent years has been volatile, with the GDP falling by 7.8% in 2022. Looking at the inflation rates based on the World Bank statistic, which has been a recurrent concern in Sri Lanka, as the inflation increased to more than 50% in 2022, caused by a currency devaluation and supply chain disruption. Meanwhile, the employment rate has historically been low, hovering about 4%, but it has recently increased as a result of the recent economic crisis, which has disproportionately affected young people. The next economic indicator that we look at is the foreign exchange reserve, which has drastically dropped from 7.6 billion in 2019 to less than 2 billion by mid-2020, limiting the country's capacities to import the crucial products. Last but not least is Sri Lanka's debt to GDP ratio, which has reached unsustainable proportions, surpassing 100% of the GDP. This high amount of debt, along with the large foreign debt, has stretched the country's financial stability, promoting the country to seek the IMF assistance.
Greetings and salutations to Sir Ahmad Ghazali. My name is Ren George. Now let's continue with the 2.0, which is the Sri Lanka economic crisis overview. So as you can see here, this is the timeline crisis of economy in Sri Lanka, and let's begin with the 2009. In that particular year, it is reported Sri Lanka have a civil war, which has affected more on the people life during the year. Moving on into 2010 and then 2017, it is noticeable by the World Bank where Sri Lanka really depends on the debt to finance their economy. In the year of 2018, there is a political issues related to constitutional structures that affect the economy of Sri Lanka in terms of their investor confidence. And then in 2019, there is an issue which is indiscipline of revenue collections, which led Sri Lanka to have high fiscal deficit. Finally, of 2020, with the widespread of COVID-19, it really affects the Sri Lanka in terms of the jobs, in terms of the poverty rates, and also the GDP also contract to 3.5% in the year of 2020. So with the existing problems, Sri Lanka have faced a bankruptcy with debt 92.43 billions. And then Sri Lanka also have requested assistance from IMF to assist them in terms of fund around 2.9 billion. Next, moving on into the impact of this crisis. This is according to World Bank, where the first one, the poverty rates, it is double from 13.1 into 25.6. The second one, we have the increase in basic needs, such as education, healthcare, and also the essential goods. The last but not least is the external imbalance. This happened because of there is a poor management in terms of their fiscal and monetary policies, and then a weak investment climate management. I think that's all from me. I will pass to Akmal and Clarence.
Alright, so we move to the next section, which is 3.0, the Sri Lanka Economic Crisis Overview, which I start with my part 3.1, the government and the international measure. So we move to the government measure first. According to Philip 2022, Sri Lanka, the government itself implement by number 1, reduce the non-essential spending. Number 2 are reduce the salaries. Number 3 is increase the tax of goods and services. And the last one, this government implement to raise the interest rate so they can defend the local currency of Sri Lanka. However, there is a protest by the people at Sri Lanka. They want to Rajapaksa, the leader of the time, to resign because this is not good for them. But by looking on the professional perspective, this is good to protect as a good for the Sri Lanka itself. Now we look on how this can be a big trouble as we call as crisis for Sri Lanka. And for this, there's an international assistance to help Sri Lanka to overcome this. Number 1, the International Monetary Fund, IMF. According to IMF 2022, they help the Sri Lanka as to economic recovery. There's amount here, as you can see. And number 2 and 3, according to Jaya Singh 2022, India and China also help them by aid some money in deferred payment term. So they can manage on how to recover back the economic, the financial crisis faced by Sri Lanka. There's a very big assist by these two countries and IMF itself.
So for my part, I would like to present about the recovery measure of short-term and long-term perspective. So under the short-term perspective, you can see that currency stabilization help to protect and defend the currency value in the market, and also by securing emergency funds help to ensure that the spending power and capabilities of household and corporate can be protect so that they able to spend of what they need, and ensuring supplies of essential goods help to ensure the continuous of economic activities. From this short-term perspective recovery measure, we can see that it can help the economic environment to recover in terms of the productivity and activities. So under the long-term perspective, we can see that the step of improving fiscal policy help to ensure the sustainability of economy, and also the better governance help to boost economic activities, and the investment on renewable energy and technology build the country image. From the long-term perspective, we can see that these steps help to develop the trust, the country's image, and the opportunities for the countries to have the investors gain an investment, and also build and currency and money inflows and outflows for the company so that they can generate and grow the capital for the development of their countries from the to get out of the financial crisis. So that's all for the recovery measure of short-term and long-term perspective.
Ladies and gentlemen, Sri Lanka's economic journey reflects resilience amidst adversity, marked by growth and formidable challenges. After the civil war from 1983 to 2009, the nation faced disrupted economic activities, ruined infrastructure, and displaced population. Despite this hardship, post-war efforts aimed at rebuilding infrastructure and revitalizing tourism, but led to substantial public debt. The nation has faced recurrent economic crises, including currency depreciation and balance of payment challenges. The 2010 to 2012 currency crisis strained foreign reserve, requiring IMF intervention. This crisis highlighted vulnerabilities in high import costs and volatile export revenues from key agriculture sectors like tea and rubber. Recent years have seen a profound economic downturn worsened by fiscal mismanagement and the COVID-19 pandemic, which led to a sharp GDP contraction, high inflation, and increase in unemployment. The government has enacted austerity measures and sought international support from India and China, including an IMF extended fund facilities. Recovery requires not just immediate stabilization, but enduring structural reforms, emphasizing fiscal disciplines, governance, and investment in sustainable sectors like renewable energy and technology. Thank you for your attention.